Greetings, brothers, sisters, friends, neighbors, fellow bodybuilders, fellow Bible studiers, Christians, non-Christians alike. Welcome to the Bears Gym. We are studying the book of Genesis today, Genesis chapter 40. We have a very interesting story about Joseph in the land of Egypt, wrongly put there. But yet in the will of God, because God has a plan for the nation of Israel to be in Egypt for a while as they grow and multiply and are cared for and learn many trades. Though being oppressed, they learn a lot of trades when they're in the land of Egypt. As they were slave labor, they learned quite a bit, which they then took into their own land and manifested into a lot of manufacturing, building walls, all that stuff, and many of it they learned in Egypt. Genesis 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. So the big guy got a little bit uptight, put his main men in prison. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief butler and against the chief baker. And he put them in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. Ta-da! Here's your moment here. Kind of indicates God has a plan. And you kind of think things are kind of swirling around, but he does have a plan. And so he's brought their lives together, and boom, here they are. In a prison, not necessarily where we would think God to be working and ministering, but in Egypt, that's where God's working, right in this time. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in the ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them. Oh, that's interesting. A dream, both of them, and the same night. Kind of interesting. That means God has something to say here. And God, once again, has a plan. Each man has dreamed in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in and unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? Sometimes a dream is foolishness. Most of the time it's foolishness. But sometimes when God's trying to speak to you, it's meaningful, and I think you know it. Okay, it's just, you don't know how you know, and you just know. Okay? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him in the dream, Behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was so that it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup. And I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler. So he's going to regain his office as the butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. So Joseph interprets and gives the interpretation of the dream to the butler of Pharaoh. And then after he did that, he tells the butler, Now, when you get out of here and you get back to Pharaoh, don't forget to mention me. Please give me a little remembrance so I can get out of this place. Okay? We'll talk about that later, what happens. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and there also have I done nothing that they should have put me into the dungeon. So he's innocent, and he's basically been enslaved as a human slave under slave traders. And now he's in a dungeon, and he still hasn't done anything wrong. And when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I was also in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh and of the birds, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Now, the baker probably was more than just a baker. He probably was a cook and a baker. In other words, the chief cook and baker. And why Pharaoh was upset with the baker, we don't really know. But when this is all kind of done, things don't go very well for the baker, but they go well for the butler. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. That's not too nice, precious. That's not too nice at all. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. He had a little birthday. That's kind of cute. So he had a little birthday party. Then he made the feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but he forgat him. So once again, we had a little situation where when somebody's life is all good again, then they forget about you because they do. They got what they wanted, and we don't really care about them. That's kind of what happened here with Joseph again. He kind of got the raw end of the stick. He blessed these guys by interpreting their dreams, but he was once again pretty much forgotten. But nonetheless, God's timing and his planning is still in play here, and it was not quite time for him to be unleashed upon the Egyptian people. And we're going to see that next time in chapter 41 of Genesis. And we're going to kind of see why it was that he was unleashed upon the Egyptian people, because it was God's plan. God's going to bless the nation of Egypt with 7 years of abundance, and then he's going to hammer them with 7 years of famine. And during that time is when Joseph's family is going to be drawn into the land of Egypt. So with that in mind, I hope you join me next time for Genesis 41. With that, God bless you from the Bears Gym. We'll see you next time. Bye.